you hear me?
Hey, what's going on?
How you doing, man?
Doing excellent. Good to connect with you. Let's just jump right into it. This is the EricSwanRacing.com podcast number 56 with Travis Wyman. So welcome and thanks for coming on and talking to me on my podcast for about an hour or so.
Thanks for having me.
So you've been a busy boy. You said you've been on like 4 podcasts this week. Is that right?
Yeah, you're my fourth this week. Yeah, so it's on top of trying to manage the race team and work and find sponsors. I've been pretty much nonstop, training and going to therapy and things like that. So it's been a busy week.
Now you've been doing like physical therapy or like talk therapy, stress relief, or what kind of stuff?
No, so I'm battling from some pretty severe arm pump and cramping in my like shoulder blades when I'm riding and training. So I've been doing a lot of like electro acupuncture and cupping and massaging and things like that to try and alleviate some of the inflammation. But that's like my biggest challenge right now is the arm pump and the cramping I'm getting on the bike, but try and get it sorted for the next race.
And so a lot of people just automatically deviate to, oh, well, you're not riding the bike right if you're getting arm pump. But then, okay, well, look at MotoGP. Look at Fabio Quartararo in the last race, leading the race and sort of bowing out, finishing the race, but in difficult fashion because of arm pump.
Yeah, absolutely. That was tough to watch. Everyone thought there was something wrong with the bike, but he was, struggling to hang on. I mean, I've been racing and riding motorcycles for almost 25 years, man. And it's like starting to take a toll on me. And every year I've debated doing the surgery. And every year I'm like, well, maybe I can just tough it out for one more. I'm almost 30. Like my career's probably coming to a close. I don't want big scars down the side of my forearms, but now it's like, I'm probably at like the best of my career. And it's like, man, I should have done it during lockdown or in the off season, but here we are. So I'm trying to manage it while I can because I don't think surgery is an option with how tight this race schedule is this year. So
yeah, back-to-back rounds and practice in between, I'm sure. So it's hard to fit it in.
Yeah, definitely. And the recovery on it is, it's like 2 to 3 weeks without hardly doing anything. So I can't really, I don't really have the time to do that, with work and everything. So here we are.
You can't just move the controls over to the left-hand side for a minute?
I wish, because my left arm isn't too bad. It's really tough running, both classes because it's 4 races again coming up and nobody's really on track more than we are in the stock and the Superbike Cup. So it was 13 laps at Atlanta in the stock races and 19 laps in the Superbike races. And that was Saturday and Sunday, not including all the practice and qualifying. So it's hard on the body for sure.
Do you think if you just did one class that you'd be better in that one class? Do you think it's too much? Is that why you're having arm pump issues, or is this just happens to be what injury you have right now?
I wouldn't call it an injury. It's more of just as they've figured out over time with racers. I mean, the amount of time you spend gripping and creating, arm pump essentially. And, over the years, I think it's just accumulated and gotten worse because it was pretty manageable in the beginning. But now, as I'm getting older, it seems like it's coming on stronger. And obviously the speeds are higher. We're running 1,000cc bikes. So all the forces are higher. It's just asking a lot out of your arms, and I don't really think there's much you can do training wise. Because, for a while they figured out that, you could exercise the forearms, or at least they thought you could, to help strengthen them and alleviate some of the arm pump. But they found out, a year or two later that was actually making the problem worse. So for now, it's therapy and trying to stretch out and do some exercises to prep. But I don't think it has anything to do with the amount of riding I'm doing. I think it's just where I'm at in my career.
Okay. Do you find yourself like doing this all the time, like trying to stretch out your arms, your forearms?
100 times a day.
And so, from what I understand, it's not only just a pain in your forearms; it's you actually get numbness in your hands.
Oh yeah. The last 5 laps of both Superbike races, I couldn't feel my hands or what I was really doing with the brake lever. So it was basing more off a feel than, or visual than off a feel.
Did you end up like looking at how far you're depressing the levers, looking at your fingers?
No, I was just trying to stay as focused as I could. Don't need any other distractions.
Sure.
It is what it is, man. It's challenging, and like you said, I mean, even the guys at the level of MotoGP are struggling with this. So it's not something that only affects me. It affects basically everyone. I'd say half the Moto America Superbike riders have had the surgery. I know my older brother has. So it's something I'll consider possibly in the future if we continue to run next year.
Yeah, for sure. It seems like it's plaguing a lot of different people at many different levels. So definitely something to watch out for. Is there something that you would recommend yourself 5 years ago to avoid, or is this just inevitable, you think?
I think when I first started getting arm pump, it probably would have been good to do what I'm doing now as far as therapy in between races, because I never really did much. And now it's almost like I'm behind the ball on it, and I'm trying to catch up for lost time of not doing stretching and therapy. So I don't know if 5 years ago I would have done the surgery, but I definitely would have taken some preventative measures to, alleviate some of it like I'm doing now. And really, I mean, working with my sports doctors here in Las Vegas, and they're trying things. They're not too familiar with it because I'm like one of their first, motorcycle athletes. They understand what's happening inside the arm, but they're trying some stuff. So we'll see.
That's encouraging anyway that they're trying some new things. And you mentioned cupping, so tell me about that. That doesn't help out with your arm, I wouldn't imagine.
No, they weren't doing cupping in my forearms. The cupping was up in between my shoulder blades. I've got some pretty major cramping going on, and I've been working with my sports doctor now for about a year, and we've kind of eliminated all the possible factors that could cause that. I've had some MRIs done on my neck, and my neck and everything looks good. I go to the chiropractor and get, my neck worked on and my ribs up in that area. But, it could just be one of those things over time that's just gotten worse as well. Because even when I'm out on the bicycle training, I get it, after an hour or so, and it's pretty painful. I'm not really able to turn my head or look behind me when that's happening. So the cupping is, I don't know if you're familiar with it, but they're basically like suction cups they put on your skin. And what they're trying to do is pull the skin away from the muscles and separate everything in there so that it frees things up a little bit, I guess. And
okay.
I mean, I could show you, got pretty gnarly bruising on my neck from it. So it's pretty intense therapy, but it helps for sure.
And from what I understood, it just brings more blood flow to the area to help circulation.
Yeah, for sure. That's the idea. It's situational based on the injury and also which part of the body they're working on. But this is my first time doing it pretty intensely in that region. So we'll see how it helps out.
It's interesting, all the different technologies and concepts that are, I mean, that's probably not a new concept, but it's coming back to light anyways.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, in the last 3 years or so, since I started working with BMW, I've put so much effort and attention on my health and my hydration and my nutrition, and just trying to be at 100%, or at least my 100% when I get out on the bike. It's something that I wish I would have taken more seriously, or at least researched more when I was growing up racing. I didn't even have an understanding of hydration at all until I started working with a nutritionist, and it's changed my life really. So it's big stuff.
Are you working with electrolyte company or something like that to help you keep you hydrated, or how do you manage that?
Yeah, so I'm sponsored by a company called Precision Hydration. They're actually started out of the UK, but they have a hub in the US now, and it's basically hydration tablets. There's 1,000 different companies out there that provide these things, but I guess I'm not shy to say now. At first I was pretty embarrassed, but like I always thought if you just drank a bunch of water and like had a Gatorade or, whatever, that you were good to go. But I never understood how hydration actually works and how you want to pre-hydrate. So like when you sweat, you lose a bunch of nutrients from your cells. And when your cells get depleted of those nutrients, that's when you get dehydrated. And at that point, there's really not a whole lot you can do to recover. And that's where you feel exhausted, drained, low energy. But what you can do by taking these tablets that I have, is you overload your cells with all of those nutrients that you lose when you sweat, so that when you sweat, you're not depleting your cells of those vitamins and nutrients. So, I mean, it's kind of hard to do, even, at Road Atlanta. I'm on the bike so much, but I'm definitely like preloading those supplements so that I'm performing at the best that I can.
Yeah, you want to start out the weekend like overloading with nutrients so that by the end of it you have like an average amount.
Absolutely. That's the goal, right? It's not always possible, especially when we race like in the South and you're sweating a lot. But
Yeah.
it's changed my life to have an understanding of this, how the body works and how to get it to peak performance. And again, it's something I wish I would have done before, but I feel like I got a pretty good handle on it now. And I mean, obviously it's paying off. We had such a good weekend in Atlanta to start off the year.
Yeah, and tell me what it's like, racing a BMW.
It's probably been one of the greatest steps I've ever taken in my career. I mean, I've been doing this for a long time, man. This is my 14th professional season road racing. And I got paired up with my crew chief, Steve Weir. He's the head of BMW North America racer support for BMW. And we got paired up, 4 years ago, and he asked me to come out and ride his bike, and it's just taken off ever since. At the time, there really wasn't very many people racing a BMW. And, as a privateer, your goal is to always, get out on the bike that nobody's winning on and, prove that it can win, get support from the factory. And that's essentially what I've done in the last 4 years. So it's been a great relationship. And I hope that, we can get a title this year. I finished second and third with BMW a couple times in the championships, and I just think we're ready for the top step.
Let me deviate a little bit from that topic. Do you think BMW will ever get into the 400cc or 600cc class categories?
So BMW has a 310. I don't essentially know how competitive it would be in the 400s, but they do make an entry level bike like that. It'd be great to see them come along with a 600, but that's insider info above my pay grade, I guess. It'd be cool to see them expand. Their involvement in racing in the United States isn't very high. Obviously, over in World Superbike, they have a full factory team. I just don't know how much backing they have from the factory to put, multiple bikes like that on the racetrack. I think their focus is 1,000 cc's, which they're proven to be successful, especially the new bike.
Yeah.
But I think their main focus is really in the off-road,
touring kind of class.
Dual sport touring bikes. That's where they're, I'd say, ahead of the game in most categories.
Yeah. Yeah. And then they dabble in racing and do extremely well. You see guys like Tom Sykes in the past, and all the guys in World Superbike just doing really good on the BMW. It seems to be a good platform. Do you guys have any communication or support or with them?
We do a little bit more from the electronics and technical side of things, but like my bike and stock trim compared to a full World Superbike, they're like not even
different.
in the category. So, but we do have communication with the factory over in Germany, and I say we, it's mostly my crew chief, Steve, has access to some information from them. So it's been helpful for sure. But last year on the new bike was difficult for us because it was new to everyone. It was still in the testing phase and working out all the growing pains with the bike to get it to where it is now.
And for people who don't know, is this a stock 1000 or a full super bike?
The bike that I'm racing? Yeah, it's a stock 1000, so stock trim. There's really not much you can do in our class. I'd say suspension. We use the stock electronics. You can upgrade the brakes, the master cylinders, and things like that. But in essence, it's essentially the bike that you can go and buy off the showroom floor and throw some suspension on and go out and race.
And I understand you can do a little bit of engine work, or is yours just a stock engine sealed still, or do you do a little bit to it?
If anything, we may have just changed, like a head gasket or something. There's really not much you can do in the stock class. I know there's some other things you can do with other brands, but I think the BMW is a great bike right out of the box, and I mean it makes plenty of horsepower. We're the highest trap speed at Road Atlanta, 180 miles an hour.
Oh,
So
dang. Yeah. Well,
I don't
that's
think
pretty
we're
good.
I don't think we need to get crazy with the engine, and I don't think the rules even allow for it. So yeah.
And talk to me about the electronics a little bit. You're running ABS, wheelie control, anti endo control, anything like that?
No, so I definitely don't run the ABS. I've ridden BMWs on track, like at the California Superbike school that I work for. They have the ABS still, and it's too intrusive, at certain lean angles. Obviously, it's made to protect the rider from losing the front. So at our level of racing, we definitely don't run ABS.
You just
Traction
turn it off
control,
even
wheelie
if you have it.
control. What's that?
You would just turn it off even if you had it on
Yeah,
available.
yeah, especially on the track. I mean, if I was riding on the street, it's great technology. They've taken over from the four-wheel world of things, and it's quite a bit more sophisticated than a motorcycle because obviously your contact patch is a lot smaller than a car. But yeah, definitely, I'd turn it off on the track. But we use traction control, wheelie control. We play around with engine braking maps and things like that to help slow the bike down, or allow it to freewheel more into a corner. Um,
Is that corner
but
based or just based on your gearing for the engine braking?
so I wish it was corner based, but it's per gear. I mean,
Okay.
we have essentially in the stock electronics, you have the ability to do per corner, but it's not legal in our class to modify that. So it's per gear, but I can usually make some pretty significant changes. I mean, um, to help me on track. I mean, at Atlanta, our setup was so dialed that I was spending a lot of time with my crew chief going through engine braking maps to just give me a little bit more free will, in turn one, or
So it
a
breaks
little
less
bit more
for
engine
you.
braking in this area. What's that?
So it breaks less for you.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, like if for example, I don't know if, like the listeners know the track at all, but like I was running second gear in turn one, which is a really high speed corner, but I was also running second gear in the tightest corners on the track. So I was set the bike up to have, quite a bit more freewheel in second so that I could roll that gear through turn one. So worked out.
That makes sense. Do you try to stay away from first? Is neutral kind of finicky sometimes?
It is. And then the way the BMW gearbox is set, first gear is so short, it's not even really functional. I've tried it before at a couple tracks in some really tight spots, but yeah, obviously you run risk of grabbing neutral, and it's such a short gear, you don't really gain a lot. Like the BMW has so much torque that I just, I'd rather be in 4,000 or 5,000 RPM in second gear than be screaming in first gear, spinning up, having to grab a quick shift. I know in like the Kawasaki's, Suzuki's, they can use first gear a lot more, but on the BMW, we stay away from it.
And Road Atlanta doesn't have a really, really tight corner that's super, super slow. I mean, even on my 600, I think it was first gear went all the way up to like 70 miles an hour. So I would imagine a
Mhm.
thousand would be even higher than that.
Yeah, yeah. In stock gearing, they claim the BMW do 100 in first, but which I have tested that at the Superbike school. But
That's wild.
when we change our gearing around for tracks, obviously to be geared longer for the straights and things like that, it changes things quite a bit.
For sure, yeah. I have some videos on YouTube of me at Road Atlanta just screaming in sixth gear, like, man, I should have changed my gearing a while back. Just
Yeah.
pinned on the throttle on the limiter for like 30 seconds. I'm like, what am I doing? Why didn't I change my gearing? I had like all the sprockets available. I just didn't do
Yeah.
it. That's how you learn. And now what I know when I go back, I'll be able to hopefully pick up instant amount of time by just changing that gearing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's hopefully anyway. That doesn't always play out that way.
But it also depends on the track too. I mean, if sometimes you'll gear for more of the corners than the straight, and sometimes you'll gear for the straight depending on how long it is. Like when we head to Road America in a few weeks, obviously there's so much time you're on the straightaway, you want to make sure you have your speed there. But I don't know. I mean, like for you, for example, if you're on the limited that long, I probably would change gearing. But if it was only for a little bit and it benefited you to be in that gearing and, you know, the tighter part of the track, then so be it.
Yeah, it was probably a little hyperbole there, but yeah, it was a little longer than I wanted to be. But
Yeah.
so I don't know if you remember, but I think we met back first in 2013 at a barber track day. I was pitted next to you, and then I ended up blowing my transmission on my Kawasaki. I was in a 2006 Pontiac Sunfire, something like that, '04 Sunfire. You know, driving all the way down to Alabama from Michigan by myself, and then blew up my transmission like the third session. And I was like, well, I guess I'm going home, you know. So I didn't have any of the parts or tools to fix it. I was just a privateer, just doing a track day by myself, getting ready for the season. I was like, ah, damn it, I guess I'm done. You know, that's how it works if you don't have spare parts.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's when you say we met.
yeah, you guys had
2013.
pitted next to me. It was Kyle, you, and Cody, I think, were there with your dad. And I just remember Kyle was breaking in a Triumph or something, and he was being really easy on the engine that day.
Well, you got a better memory than I do, man. That's like 8 years ago now or something. That's crazy.
Quite a while, yeah.
Awesome, though.
Yeah, I don't expect you to remember 8 years ago as some guy at a track day. I was there for 3 hours, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've been actually away from the racing scene for a little while now. I raced was on track from 11 to 2015. And I've been doing mountain bike racing and foot racing since I kind of ran out of money. And I'm just trying to build my business, ericswanracing.com, to help fund it myself and not have to rely on sponsorship alone, because that didn't work out so well for me.
Sure.
And I'm just excited to get back into it in a couple of years. And actually, I haven't talked about this yet on the podcast, but I plan to do some corner working this year, some flag station. I've never done that. I don't think most people have done a corner working day. So I want to do, like, I can't do anything just half-assed. So I want to do like 5 full weekends of corner working. I want to do a CCS. That'll be an amateur race. I'd like to do a local track near me, Grattan Raceway, for Wera. They do a Friday practice day with sport bike track time, just a track day. And then the amateur race on Saturday, Sunday. I'd like to maybe do Pittsburgh, Moto America. And then I could do Road America as well in Wisconsin. And then there was one more. I could probably do Wera, Mid-Ohio coming up. So maybe 5 different weekends. I think it'd be pretty fun to learn that different perspective of things. You know, I've been at the racetrack for years, and I love it. And it's hard to be away from the sport and not see all your friends, because all my friends live at the racetrack, you know,
Right.
and they're from all around the country, and I haven't been there. So I'm sorry, and I miss you guys. And I can't wait to be back. But at least this way, I might be getting paid at some events. I think they get paid sometimes, which is nice. That you go to a track and you actually get paid to do it instead of spending a ton of money.
Yeah. Nice.
So I know nothing about it yet, but I'm starting to learn, so I'm excited.
Well, from my perspective, I hope to see you in the pits and not out on track somewhere.
That's the idea, man. It's I think in 2 or 3 years, if everything goes well and I keep my job and my business goes well, I want to be back out there at least doing the first year. I mean, I've been away from it now since 2015. So I did a track day in 2018, but that was like a half a track day on a bike that I was planning to sell, that I wasn't trying to race super hard. So imagine you've been away from the sport. At that point, it'll be 8 years or so. How many track days do you have to do to get back up to speed? You know, I'm thinking at least 3 track day weekends, and then maybe do a Wera race and see where I'm at, you know.
Dude, my personal opinion, you've been away from the bike for that long, I would say go take school. Just get your fundamentals back and then go out to a track day.
So here's the thing. I haven't been riding a bike in a long time, but I've been racing a mountain bike series. And I got fourth in the state in sport last year. And I just started a go-kart racing league, and I'm leading the championship right now.
There you go.
So I still have racing in my blood, and I have a racing simulator in my living room. So I'm still at the track, but not really at the track, you know. So,
Do
but
you
yeah,
do,
go ahead. I'm
sorry, do
sorry.
you do iRacing or what are you on your simulator?
So right now it's just Gran Turismo and Formula One. But even those are pretty competitive. Like I just actually downloaded an update file for Gran Turismo. I'm super excited to use that has some sort of Olympic feature on it. I just found out about this yesterday that there's going to be a new, like years ago, they had something called a GT Academy where the best racers who had the fastest lap times would go and they would go into a real car and do laps and drive for Gran Turismo. And
Yep.
this one I think is similar in that they're taking the fastest people from each country and putting them into like an Olympic legitimate race.
Nice.
So I would love to do iRacing, and my friend has that. I'm gonna go over to his house hopefully sometime next week to do some iRacing. That's really I think where it's at. I'm just not trying to spend tons of money on my setup yet, although I spent a little bit too much already. But I consider the simulator in my living room to be my fix for now. You know, it helps me not have to spend $2,000 a weekend at the track or whatever.
For sure. So I've got a pretty solid setup for simulator. I've got like triple screen monitors and I run on iRacing. And the reason I go iRacing is because I use it for training to help me learn the tracks.
For sure,
Like
yeah.
all week when I've had a few minutes, I'll sit down and do 10, 20 laps at VIR and just prep visually and mentally for the track.
It's so valuable, and that's why I'm thinking I need iRacing, but you have to have a PC setup. Is that correct?
Yeah, you do.
So yeah, that's what my buddy has. My buddy Al, I interviewed him on here, one of the first episodes, and yeah, he's got the same thing. He's got 3 monitors, the full seat and everything. What I don't like about my setup is I bought the cheapest possible like seat and base that you mount everything to, and so it moves like this all the time. It's like, it makes it more difficult, I guess. But yeah, it's not perfect, but it works, and it's even for Gran Turismo, it's I've been playing online and get my ass kicked sometimes, but it's fun, man. It's a challenge. So yeah, it's a great time.
But hey, back to what we were talking about before, but you still doing some racing, you're doing some simulator stuff, but you haven't been active in racing bikes on track for a while. I would still 100% recommend a school. Get, money back from this. And I'm not even going to say that you have to go take the California Superbike school because they sponsor me and I work for them. Any school around the country, the champion school, they're all good, just to get the fundamentals of riding back before you go spend a bunch of money at a track day. That is 100% what I would do. Everybody thinks, I don't mean to categorize you in this, but people go to track days and they ride and they don't understand why they're not getting faster, why they're not improving. And I would recommend 100% going to take a school. I was racing professionally for 6 years before I got involved with the Superbike school. And I kind of felt the same way when I approached them about a job to be a coach. The first thing they told me was, well, you have to go through a level 1 school as a student first. And at first I was like, I'm a pro racer. Why would I need to do that? But I let my ego chill out a little bit. And I went and took the school and did a level 1 course with the California Superbike school. And it changed my life. Hands down, the fundamentals of riding that I had no full understanding of. It took me from being a mid-level rider to, winning races, top 3 in championships, and it has helped me immensely. So that's what I recommend doing before you go back out to the track.
Well, I will definitely take your recommendation to heart because it can't be bad from a pro racer. And I have done the Jason DeSalvo Speed Academy a couple of times. I did it at Barber. I did it at Gingerman Raceway. And that was such a great, valuable tool to have. It just boosted my confidence and boosted my knowledge of the sport so much. And actually, it's on my calendar. I haven't scheduled it yet, but next year sometime I want to do the corner spin road racing camp. I think it's in North Carolina. So that's like a road racing camp, but you're on XR 100. So you're playing in the dirt, but that's one way to train. And I actually just interviewed today Desiree Caldwell, who is a Texas Tornado boot camp instructor.
Okay.
So yeah, it's I think all that training is extremely valuable, and I can't wait to have the money to spend to do it.
Yeah, understood.
So all in time for sure. And so I wanted to ask you, since you've been doing so many different podcasts, is there something on your mind you wanted to talk about that nobody has touched on yet?
I mean, really, the focus of these podcasts has been on last weekend. You know, we're leading the championship in both classes. We had to set a new track record. And going into the next round, obviously, I've got a ton of confidence, but the class that I'm racing in now, that the competition's so fierce. I mean, so that's really been the focus. Haven't really touched on a lot about what I do outside of racing. As far as my jobs go, and you may not even be aware, but I juggle 4 different jobs between the superbike school and then 3. I work instructing in cars as well. So I work at the Ron Fellows Performance Driving School, which is GM based products. So like the Corvette Racing School and Cadillacs and things like that. And then I work for the Ford Racing School, which specializes in Mustangs, SUVs. We do the Raptor off-road programs. And that's based between like Charlotte, North Carolina and Salt Lake City in Utah. And then I also work for the Allen Berg Racing School, which is a Formula car driving school up at Laguna Seca. So between the Superbike school and those 3 car gigs, managing a race team, trying to, coordinate everything and schedule everything is really difficult. But somehow make it work. All my bosses are pretty understanding of my schedule and work with me on my dates. But really, I spend anywhere between 280 to 300 days a year at the racetrack. And I don't think I'd have it on any other way.
That sounds like a blast. How do I get more involved and do more of that?
Do more car coaching. So you're like being a track, and you race karts. So I don't think you'd have a problem.
I'm fast in a kart. I've raced an Audi one time in an autocross, and I got 3rd place. Event. Like it was my first time ever behind the wheel of a car in a race event, and I did pretty good. So I mean, I'm fast in pretty much everything. I just need some seat time and the money to do it, which is so frustrating. It's like it's all this catch-22 because you need the funds to compete so that you'll get the sponsors, but how do you get the money to, it's a cycle. So I just said I've had it, and I'm building my own money, my own way. So that's kind of my plan. But yeah, if I could be a coach somewhere or ride and teach in an aspect, there have been organizations, track day organizations that I could have coached for before and gotten free track time. But at the same aspect, you don't always get to work on your own riding as much. So it's kind of which one do you want to do? Do you want to actually work on, your championship, or do you want to coach other people? So it depends if you're getting paid for it or if you're actually just getting free track time. It's a little different.
For sure. Yeah, getting involved in a proper school where you be an instructor or coach just be the best way to do it for sure. And there's schools all over the country. I mean, there's Porsche driving schools, BMW academies. There's pretty much every manufacturer these days that has a performance car. They supply a school that you can go to learn about your car. So like that's how the Corvette program works, is like anybody that buys a new Corvette, they get to come take a school and learn about it, and I teach them how the car works. It's the same with Ford. So there's a lot of different places and companies and manufacturers out there now, and a lot of them do traveling stuff, like Mercedes and AMG. They travel around. They're not like solely based in one track. Ferrari, Lamborghini, like obviously those are harder to get onto, but there's a ton of programs out there.
Man, you got me thinking now.
Kind of looking into it, but you have the qualification to, I'd say approach a school and submit a resume and tell them what you do. But So finding one that, you know, fits within your schedule too.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I actually earned my pro license for Moto America back in 2015. I just kind of ran out of funds after I smashed my bike into the wall.
Mhm.
I didn't have a backup one, and I was like, oh, well, I guess I'm out for now. Try to rebuild, and now I'm trying to buy a house, and try to buy a new truck, and
Life.
that's like 50 grand of just down payment right there. So it's like, well, okay, well, after all that, maybe then I can buy a new bike, then I need a new
Yeah.
trailer, then it's then some new gear. I mean, I have a suit still. I have most of my gear. I need a new helmet. I need 2 new helmets, so that's another couple grand. But I'm optimistic. I can't wait to get back into it. But first, I'm gonna do a 50cc, and then a 150cc, and then get some training under me, get some corner spin camp, maybe a road racing camp or training of some sort, and I just want to get faster. Doesn't everybody?
Oh, of course. I just won last weekend and broke the record, but I still want to go faster.
It's always this elusive. But you left. It was another 3/10 from your optimal pace or whatever, your optimal lap time.
Yep. Yep.
So how far away are you typically from your optimal lap time? Do you pay attention to that?
Yeah, of course. By the end of the weekend, and pretty much, I'd say like my optimal sectors are right around where my fastest lap is. I'm pretty consistent in my laps, like when I get into my groove in a race, unless we have, a significant fall off in handling or tire wear. But I mean, when I broke the track record at Atlanta, like all of my sectors were on that lap. So that my optimal was my best lap. So it's usually pretty close.
That's good.
It was difficult. Sorry.
Yeah, if it's 3 seconds off or something, it's probably the conditions. It's unlikely, or you're a novice at that point.
Yeah, or and at Atlanta there was 36 bikes in our class in stock 1000. So in qualifying, my best time was, I think, like a 27.5 or something, but my optimal was like a 26.5. But I kept getting into lap traffic, so the lap was there essentially if you were to put all the puzzle pieces together, but I couldn't actually make it happen, being held up. It's a pretty short track with that many riders on it. It was difficult, but overall I'd say I'm pretty consistent.
That's good. Is there any one aspect that you typically struggle with, or is it always, I mean, you're always working on suspension and setup, like corner entry or braking zones, typically, anything like that?
It's so situational. Depends on the track and things like that. My biggest obstacle right now is my forearm pump. Like, my training is good, my fitness is good, but when you get to a point in the race where you can't hardly hang on anymore or navigate the bars, I mean, that's my limiting factor right now. But as far as like bike setup goes, or like riding attributes, I'd say my weakest point is probably confidence on the edge of the tire. Like, where like over in Europe, those guys are so confident to be pushing at the absolute limit at all times. I have difficulty getting to that point quickly.
Okay. Yeah, I see. I see a big factor that people make up a lot of time is like trail braking, like the Marquezes of the world, that are nearing perfection on trail braking speed. It's hard to compete with that level of speed and accuracy when that's a dangerous point of the corner for making up time typically. I mean, dangerous as far as you might lose the front, but losing the front might be actually one of the easier crashes. As far as like trying to maximize the throttle might be more dangerous than losing the front.
Right. Or at least more predictable.
Yeah. So it's all just trying to manage it all and staying on 2 wheels. It's sometimes difficult. Are you looking forward to some wet weather racing this year if we go to some tracks that have those poor conditions?
Definitely. I love racing in the rain. I seem to excel in the rain. We haven't done it in a long time though. We made it all through last year without a single rain race. We had a wet session at Road America, but we're heading to Virginia and Road America in June, and those places usually prove to, produce some rain. But next weekend's actually looking pretty clear. So, if I was struggling right now and I was 5th or 6th place, I'd say, yeah, give me a rain race so I have a shot at a victory. But I feel super confident with the package we have right now, even in the dry. And I'd say setup wise, Road Atlanta and VIR are very similar, and VIR is a track that I like a lot. I think we're going to do really well there. And I don't want to get ahead of myself, but we are finally getting to grips with the new BMW because last year was very difficult. So I just feel great. Like even at lap record pace, it felt somewhat easy. So I'm looking forward to getting back out there next weekend.
That's exciting when you're doing that fast pace and it doesn't feel like you're working for it, and you look down and see lap time, like, oh, all right, I thought I was going 3 seconds slower or whatever. It's it means you're doing something right. You got the fundamentals down. You got your body position in the right way, and somewhat you hit the setup. Now you're not going to hit the setup perfectly every time. You're always going to ride around something, right? But that's just part of it.
Yeah, for sure. But that's where having a team and a good engineer to create baseline setups is so important. Especially at our level, we only have 30 minutes of practice, then we go straight to qualifying. There's no time to like really set the bike up. But given that we raced the Road Atlanta last year, when we showed up this year, we knew exactly where the bike needed to be set based on, my fastest lap from the previous year. The difficulty we'll find at VIR is we didn't race there last year because it got canceled because of COVID. So that's the only track other than Brainerd, the new track, that we haven't ridden the new platform BMW at. But the setup's so similar between Atlanta and VIR, and that it's back to back, I think we'll be just fine.
Makes me think of your simulator. What kind of car are you on in your iRacing sim for VIR?
So, I'll get out with my buddies and we'll mess around and we'll have races in like the, the Miatas and, bang around and crash each other and whatnot. But like for my own training visually, I always try and pick a car that's, 5 seconds or so quicker than my laps around the track. Nothing crazy like a Formula One car or something along those lines because the speed's too fast. But I think just visual timing and repetition and processing, what you're seeing, how to approach a corner, errors that are made. I think it's so beneficial. And it's cool to hear that you have a simulator that you use. My younger brother, he lives here in the house with me. He's got his simulator set up right beside mine. So we jump on and do some races when we're home. But I'm surprised more guys in our industry of two wheels aren't using these simulators, because at iRacing, it's a computer software program that they send a team of people out to the track and laser scan the track. So they're perfect. They're every crack or bump in the road. Like, I don't know why more guys aren't using it. And hopefully I don't give it away here that I got training on video games, but I wouldn't even call it a video game because the thing is so realistic that it helps. I mean, when I showed up to Road Atlanta after doing weeks on the sim, I was ready to go.
That's exciting. Yeah. It's I feel like I'm missing out on some of the tracks, but at least I'm getting the feel for it. But I'm not going to specific tracks right now, so it's not as valuable. But for you,
still getting the racecraft and
and on Gran Turismo, they're all real tracks, and so you are learning different tracks around the world. There's some new ones that I'm not super familiar with, and actually on the Formula One circuit, there's a bunch of new tracks that I don't know. There's Azerbaijan, there's a Mexican Grand Prix, there's Russia, Sochi, and so those are totally different. And now you're trying to hustle a Formula One car on some of these corners that a car doesn't belong on. Some crazy corners there. It's like, who designed this? Why did you make this with walls next to it? But that's how they like it. Their walls are in their DNA. Just different.
Absolutely.
So yeah, as Is there anybody on your team you want to talk about, like crew guys or anybody, any personnel who's been a helpful person to you?
So absolutely. I mean, first of all, I mentioned my crew chief, Steve Weir of BMW North America. He works for BMW. So anybody in the country and even Canada, when if they have technical questions about the bike or setup of their, their BMW, they can call Steve and get support. And this year in the Moto America paddock, there's, I think, the highest amount of BMW riders that we've ever seen at the pro level. So, like, even though he's my crew chief and he works with me, he spends more time around the paddock helping everyone else too with their setup and things, because that's what he's contracted to do. So, fortunate enough, I'm glad to have him in my corner, because he's labeled as my crew chief, but he helps everyone else out, even my competitors. But he's really good at what he does, and I definitely owe a lot of the setup and the changes we make to him, and all the testing that we did leading up to Atlanta definitely helped, because we did like proper testing. Like, rather than just trying to make the bike faster, he was testing like both ends of the spectrum of a setup so that I understood how the bike would react. Even though he knew the change was going to affect the bike negatively, he wanted me to feel that. And that's something we've never really had the chance to do before. So I owe it to him for putting in the effort to come and test with me and, be in my corner and all the work that he does with BMW. And then also I have to thank my main crew guy. His name's Alex Torres. He runs a motorcycle performance shop in Austin, Texas, called Fastline Motorcycle Performance. He used to be based out of California, but then he moved to Texas. But he is literally the only guy that works on my bike, where most teams have 8 to 10 people. My team, it consists of myself, Steve and Alex, and then my mom. And that's it. So those are the people that I owe, everything to. My mom supplies the rig for transportation in the trailer, and she helps with like hospitality, like cooking food and things like that. But it's basically just the four of us. I mean, my girlfriend comes to the races and makes sure I'm on my hydration program, and, make sure I have water and a cold towel and things like that. But when it comes to like setup and tear down and everything, it's me and Alex basically. So those are the people I have to thank for sure, because that's like my core team. I've even told Alex, I'm like, hey man, I'll bring more people in to help you. And he's like, no, I got it. He's like, he wants to know that it's done the right way. He doesn't even let Steve touch the bike hardly. Steve, he's like, go back to your computer. Tell me what the bike needs. He's probably the hardest working dude in the paddock, because he is the only one working on my bike. So yeah. I owe it all of those guys for sure.
That's cool to have such a tight knit group of people. And I know that you have a family of racers. You want to talk about either one of your brothers for a second?
Yeah, of course. I mean, my brother Cody, he races in the Junior Cup on a Kawasaki 400 this year. He just got his first pro podium last weekend at Atlanta. And my older brother Kyle, he's been racing Superbike for quite a few years now. He signed with Factory Harley for the bagger racing. Got a podium in the bagger, I think a top 5 in Superbike. And he's got basically an all new bike he's working with this year in the Ducati that he's still trying to sort out. And it's been cool to have the three of us at this level for so many years. And actually Atlanta was the first time that all three of us were on the podium in the same weekend since
cool.
We were kids growing up racing dirt bikes.
Yeah.
And it's this first time anything like that has happened since the Hayden brothers. So we've always looked up to them kind of as our idols, and to say that the three of us are racing in Moto America together is really cool. I mean, my dad, he crew chiefs Cody's bike. My mom is obviously there to help me. My uncle comes along. It's a huge family affair, even though we're all on 3 different programs. It's still really cool.
Yeah, so all 3 separate teams, 3 separate programs, but you got 3 brothers racing in the same pro paddock. That really is very rare to have not 1, not 2, but 3 professional racers. I read the Earl Hayden's book on racing that he wrote, and it really kind of made me think, it doesn't just happen. Like there's something in place there that helped that develop, and that's a huge testament to their parents, but also the work ethic of the children and the kids. for putting in the work. But, without that guidance, it'd be very difficult, I think, to get there, right?
Absolutely, man. It all stems from my parents, and it even stemmed from my parents' parents. My mom's dad raced cars, back before. I mean, we're talking like in the 1930s, 1940s. He was racing cars, and so as my grandfather, he actually started a Harley Davidson dealership in 1962, which we basically grew up living in. And my mom, she owns the dealership now, and my mom drag raced motorcycles. My dad drag raced motorcycles. That's where they met, and then they had the three of us. So racing's been in the family for a long time, and motorsports has as well. So it definitely is really cool. I'm very proud of what we've done, and I'm very fortunate to have parents that brought us up in racing. I couldn't imagine doing anything else.
Yeah. And have you ever been to the drag strip then, since both your parents have?
Personally, I mean, we grew up at the drag strip. Before we were old enough to race, my parents were still racing. I mean, there's pictures of us in strollers with our big earmuffs on at the drag strip, So we basically grew up in it. I think my mom was even like 2 or 3 months pregnant with us when she was still drag racing her pickup truck. I mean, it's kind of ingrained in the blood, man.
Yeah.
But since then, I've done a lot of events at drag strips, like as part of the Ford Racing School. We do drag strip runs with the GT 500s and things like that. So I've spent some time, but I never actually competed at a drag strip.
Okay. I think it would probably be beneficial for starts, well, obviously.
Yeah, dude, that's okay. You asked me what my worst flaw is in racing, and it's definitely my starts.
You think so?
Yeah.
See, I felt like I was good at starts, but I'm a light guy. I mean, I'm not super light. I'm 150 pounds, 6 feet tall, but light and skinny, I guess. But I was good on the Kawasaki when I was starting, but I switched to the Triumph. I only had a few starts in the Triumph, so I wasn't really used to it yet. But I never had a great start in the Triumph. So maybe it was just I felt that bite point really well with the Kawasaki.
It's good. It's good. I think I've only ever started and led in a turn one and won a race one time. I usually make my job a lot harder coming from fifth or sixth to win a race. So that's something that I should probably think about doing, is going out to the drag strip and practicing some starts.
Yeah, it couldn't hurt, that's for sure. My best start ever was at Mid-Ohio, from the third row in a national race, and I got the whole shot in 600cc class.
There you go.
Now, I will say that there wasn't a pileup, but there was some slower riders at the apex of the turn, and I decided I'm going to go around everybody. So I just took the outside line, and it happened to be faster. I was like, holy crap, that worked out. Sometimes it works if you just take a different line. It's a little unorthodox. You can make gaps on people, but it is risky. It can be.
Absolutely.
But that's all about racecraft. I thought for a while I was going to call this podcast Racecraft, because I just love the concept of like your strategy, your planning, how you make passes, if you pass and repass somebody. I just love it, man. That's there's a reason why I own a business with my name on it. It's called Eric Swahn Racing. I just love racing. I just love it.
Yeah, you seem super passionate about it, and it sounds like you're kind of multicultural in the motorsports industry like I am. So it's pretty cool to hear you race karts and have raced a car before, and you got a simulator, but you're obviously into motorcycles. So yeah, it's cool to be able to relate to people like that.
Yeah, I think motorcycles is just such a more attainable thing for most people. For me anyways, I can't realistically expect to buy a Mazda Miata and put a race engine in that car. You're looking at like $100,000 for just the car and everything, or at least
competitive for sure.
1,000 or more, right? So it's unrealistic. I mean, you could say some of the super stock bikes are pushing 40, 50,000, but you don't need that to compete. I mean, people are out there on, I think John Hawkins is on like a 2016-year-old bike. He's on like a 5-year-old bike out there, racing pro level stuff. It's possible and doing well. So you don't need it. It definitely helps.
Yeah, sure.
But even like most of the time that I raced, I was on a $7,500 bike.
Yep.
And with all the stuff behind me, that's a $7,500 bike. It's possible. So
Yeah, for sure. The problem is like they made the contingency programs. Well, I'm sure they've been like that for years, but you have to have, within a couple years old to earn the contingency money. But so for me, it's more about earning something back financially because of how expensive it is. But yeah, you can absolutely go out there and have fun and win races. I mean, on an older bike, I was out testing a chuck wall this winter and I was getting beat by dudes on like 10-year-old 600s. And I was like, these guys are getting after it. But yeah, the contingencies is where a lot of the money invested comes back at pro racing. So
yeah, that's
the
definitely
has a
something.
really good contingency plan in place for Moto America between Superbike and stock. So that's how I'm able to do it, running both classes.
For sure. And when you're spending that much money, you need money coming back in. And if it's within, I think it's 2 years of the manufacture date, it's eligible.
Yeah.
So that's definitely something to consider. Even a 2021 brand new Kawasaki 600 is $10,000. That's a fantastic price point.
Absolutely. Yep.
I don't think there's many that can compete with that. I think a lot of them used to be in the 12.5 range.
Right.
So I've been just watching in between podcasts today. I was watching MotoGP qualifying. I saw Moto2 and MotoGP. I haven't watched Moto3 yet, so don't spoil it for me. Have you been following that stuff?
Of course.
And who you got your eye on this weekend? They're at Le Mans in France.
So I texted Joe Roberts before the weekend, and I told him, I said, this is your weekend, man. Like, he did so well there last year and got screwed on the start. I was like, dude, I think you got a shot. And so you said you watched it. I mean, he was fastest in dry and then third in wet, but not by much. I think he'll have a good shot starting from the front row. My prediction in MotoGP, I mean, I hate to jump on the train, but I will say that I predicted Fabio from the beginning of the year when he got on the factory bike, and he's been doing really well. And I think he's got a pretty good shot tomorrow. Do you do the MotoGP fantasy at all? Do you have,
I signed up for it. I haven't checked it in a couple of weeks, so I'm probably a little behind.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just started doing the fantasy. I'm not a big fantasy guy yet, but I think Fabio, I mean, third pole position in a row. That's almost unheard of in this era.
Right.
And but there was almost a Honda lockout. I thought that was hilarious. It was Honda lockout 1, 2, 3, and then it's not over yet, guys. Wait a minute. They're about to put in their fastest lap when the track is driest. And but it was spitting down pretty hard. I even said to myself, they're not gonna put any more laps in. It was raining sideways.
Yeah. The problem is with social media these days, like I saw who was on pole, and then when they said Honda lockout, that's when I was like, all right, now I'm definitely gonna like pay attention because but I was pretty impressed they put in a time there, at the end. All those guys did. MotoGP is super exciting this year and has been. My guy has always been Marquez. The dude has taken MotoGP to an entirely new level, and I hate people who say that MotoGP is better without him, because there was nothing like watching that dude be the best in the world by a long shot over everyone. But it's kind of tough to watch him struggle right now. I hate to say it, but I don't know if he'll ever be the same Marquez that he was.
Yeah, sometimes you have those crashes that kind of mess with your head a little bit, or, I hit a guardrail myself at about 100 miles an hour, 120, and it hurt me pretty bad. I was in the hospital for 2 weeks, and he didn't have a crash that bad. I mean, he broke his arm that was pretty nasty, that ended up having 3 surgeries later, in part because of his decision to come back so soon. But yeah, all those injuries affect you. I always think about, man, how good would we all be if we didn't get injured so often? If we didn't have all these tiny injuries and we didn't have to be away from the sport for a year and a half or however long in his case. But it's part of it. It's all about resilience. How hard can you get hit and still keep coming back time after time? I mean, they crash what, 20, 30 times a season. I might have crashed 2, 3 at the most.
Yeah.
And I thought that was crazy. I thought I can't afford this. 2 or 3, this is ridiculous.
So I've had that conversation with someone before, talking about like if injuries weren't a thing. And it's like, I think injuries not only humble you, but also make you stronger, like you were kind of saying. And like, if we lived in a world without consequences for, desirable things, it's like that running joke. Like if you didn't get a hangover from alcohol, it would just get out of control.
Yeah.
Like imagine if UFC fighters didn't get injured, it would be unbelievably out of control.
Yeah.
Yes. So I think it's good. I mean, and even me personally, like my injuries have allowed me to have the time to focus more on my nutrition and my preparation and my body. So for me, I think it's great. But back to what we were saying about Marquez, it's like I think a lot of that, his setback was not from the crash or the break, because it, at the time didn't look so bad. I think it was more from the infection that he got from, his surgery or in the healing process. He's just not as strong anymore, and he had to take such a big break off.
Yeah, and to come back to a world level sport where everybody's the fastest person from each country. They're all national champions. It's hard to come back into a pool of sharks when you still have a broken fin, right? It's difficult. It's like you can't just get back into it and do 80%. You have to get back into it and do 100% every session, or you're going to be last. I mean, look at Rossi.
Sure.
He's obviously one of the most experienced guys in the grid, and he's on the same bike who just got pole position.
Right.
So how is he struggling so much? But he was up there at the start of the session, right? I was like, oh, Rossi's in third or something for a second, and then everybody else did their laps.
Yeah. One of the things that bugs me the most is when people say that dude's washed up and needs to retire. That guy is still competing at the highest level in the world at his age. Do I think he'll win a race again? Probably not. But a podium this year, I think is, possible.
In the cards, I'd say.
Yeah.
I think if it rains, he has a good chance of doing really well.
If it rains? Yeah, I'd probably take that bet, because there are so many dudes that can ride so well in the rain in MotoGP. Between Zarco, Petrucci, Vinales. I mean, there are so many guys that are so talented at that level. But back to Marquez, so Rossi didn't get his 10th championship. He's got 9, and I don't think that that's a possibility before his career is over. But before Mark got injured, I would have put a lot of money down that dude would go 10 straight. But I don't think it's in the cards for him anymore. Fortunately, his injuries set him back. But it's definitely exciting to watch. I'm looking forward to the race. I wish.
Yeah, sorry. I think that I think Marquez still can win another championship. I don't think he's out of championship contention. I mean, it's just a couple of races back from a major setback. So maybe this year, I would say not a championship. However, next year, it's a whole new ball game. There's always people coming in, people going out. Just look at, there's no more Cal Crutchlow. There's no more Andrea Iannone. There's no more Dovizioso. Like all these people who are phenomenal racers, sometimes they bow out. Sometimes they don't have a choice. Sometimes new guys come up and the new guys are finishing 17th. So it leaves a big opportunity. There's always this flow of new people coming in and people going out. People retire, Colin Edwards, Danny Pedrosa, Jorge Lorenzo, all these major names just are not in the sport anymore. So it leaves a major opportunity where Pedrosa was a consistent podium finisher. Now there's another spot on the podium that's available.
Mm-hmm. For sure. And it seems like, depending on the track, like you could take the top 15 guys and they've got a shot at the podium.
Yeah. or even
depending on the track, the conditions, and all that.
Jorge Martin. Is he even back yet?
No.
Still injured. He had a bad crash at
Yeah.
Austria and was out for a
Yep.
little while. Was it Austria or Portimao? Portugal.
Portimao, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, MotoGP is definitely exciting. I love watching Moto2, because I raced against Joe for a lot of years, and seeing Bobier jump into that from this level is cool. I'm really excited to watch World Superbike this year because I honestly think Garrett has a good shot, but also just excited to see so many Americans now coming from Moto America, going to that level and proving that we're competitive over here. Like it makes me feel good about what we're doing over here as a sport, and it's bringing more attention to our series too and our talent level. And I'm 29 years old now, but it might open the door for something in the future. For me personally, I figured the days of potentially going to Europe were come and gone a long time ago, but who knows? I mean, we've got Europeans coming over here to race, so the level is obviously very high, and I think it's great for the sport to have the Americans in it. But I'm really looking forward to World Superbike too.
Yeah, for sure. To echo your thought, I think Joe Roberts is doing phenomenal. Cam Bobier, he's doing great in his first year. I'm excited to see Garrett Gerloff and World Superbike kick some ass. And it's exciting. Cam Bobier being out of the Moto America series leaves a gap in our series for a new champion. And it's exciting to see who takes over that spot. I think the Attack Yamahas will be really strong. I think Heron will be right up there. I think Jake Gagne will be there too. Kyle, he's a podium finisher. I think he can get back up there. I think he can do that some more. Hector Barbera and Loris Baz being in the series, that's pretty interesting. I expected Hector Barbera to be way farther up than he was. And Loris Baz, everybody thought he was going to sweep away and take the win by 20 seconds, and that didn't happen. So it's he's got to get used to circuits, new bike, new team, new everything, new country. So it's not like it's just everything gonna click the first time you throw your leg over the bike. So it's gonna take some time
For
to
sure.
get acclimated with everything.
And you even forgot to mention the current Superbike points leader too. Matthew Schultz is stronger than ever this
South
year.
African.
Yeah.
He's on the Westby Racing bike and on the Yamaha, and he's proved to be fast. He surprised me. I did not expect him to be as fast as he was. He was not in my radar. As if we were playing Moto America Fantasy, he wasn't in my roster.
Yeah, that's home track for the Westby team. So I know they did quite a bit of testing there, but anybody that's not on a factory team always kind of takes the back seat when you start thinking about potential race winners. But I think they got a pretty solid program this year, and I think Matthew's riding better than ever. I mean, he's always close to the front row qualifying, or just one or two spots off, but I think it's pretty wide open this year in Superbike who's going to take it. I mean, I think any of the top 6 guys could have a shot at it.
And Tony's not in it anymore.
Yep, Baz got
Tony
some work
Elias.
to do.
So yeah, Baz got some work, and it's exciting to see how it all plays out. I just love it's like they call it a male drama. It's like just see how it all plays out.
Yep. And for me, my goal is to try and latch onto those guys as best as I can in the Superbike races, even if it is for a couple laps. I mean, at Atlanta, I was qualified, at the top spot of all the stock guys and even ahead of a few Superbike guys. So in those opening laps, I was following Hector Barbera and my brother, and they actually towed me to an even better lap record. And I learned some things for the little bit of time that I could stay with them. Obviously, you get on that long straightaway horsepower, they pull the gap, but I think at some other tracks, if I'm in that same position, I should be able to get a tow on them, kind of like how Peterson did last year. He was able to mix it up with some of those guys at the tracks. That's really my goal for this year in the Superbike Cup.
Get ahead of some of the Superbike guys.
Mm-hmm.
And try to get up with them again. Anytime you can get up with a faster rider and a faster bike, you can learn from them and hopefully shave off some time on your lap time. And it's just so difficult when they have a bigger engine. It's like you just got to make it up on braking, and you got to push harder in the corners, and they're already pushing as hard as they can.
For sure. Yeah. And it would be really cool to be like the top finishing BMW and, in Superbike. I'm not saying I'm going to beat Hector Barbera by any means because he's somebody I looked up to and watched race. But like you said about Baz, I mean, Hector doesn't know any of the racetracks and he is on the older generation BMW. So I think at some tracks I might have a pretty good shot. I finished behind him in both Superbike races. So I'm going to do what I can to improve our setup so we can be up there and not be battling with, the stock guys.
It seems like a loss or not good enough that we don't have a motorcycle simulator. Why is there no sim product that you can buy off the shelf like a Fanatic simulator yet?
Good question. I mean, they've got $200,000 full motion car simulators, so I don't think it's too far out of the realm. I've seen some things on like Instagram and of like a MotoGP bike, but I think it would be so unrealistic simulating the G-forces and the way that the bike leans and things like that they're still going to have to work out, create some sort of hydraulic system that will simulate that a little bit better. But for me right now, I mean, the iRacing is good enough just for learning the tracks.
Yeah, and what I noticed? I've been doing this kart racing league, and after I did 30 laps, my neck was killing me for the next couple of days. You can't simulate G-force on a simulator.
No, you can't. And they've been trying. They've been working on full motion sims that move under braking, slide back under acceleration. I mean, you hit a wall or something, the whole thing shakes. But and I've actually spent some time on some of those full motion simulators, and it's like it almost gives you motion sickness because there's a delay to it. It's not super realistic. I mean, driving a Formula car and you go to the brakes and it dives down like a big trophy truck would, and it's like, I get it. You guys are doing a good job, but you're still not quite there.
Yeah, you get the concept, but it's not perfect. Sure.
For sure. But I mean, one day, who knows?
Maybe 2030 we'll be there.
Sooner than that.
You think so?
2030, we're going to be flying to the moon.
So what's your next big technology thing you're excited for? Is there anything on your radar? Whether it's bikes or just consumer electronics or going to the moon or Mars, maybe?
So I do have like a fifth job. It's not, it's like a part-time thing. I started working with Google in their autonomous car. So I think the technology there is pretty exciting stuff. Obviously, it's the more self-driving we get, the further we stray away from motorsports and racing. So I just think it's pretty exciting to think there'd be a day that we'd see in our lives where you could just hop in the car and it'll take you to where you want to go. And we're already getting to that point. So I think that stuff's pretty exciting.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's kind of like a double-edged sword. If it sounds like it could be terrible for motorsports because less people would be driving. But personally, I hate transportation. I love driving, but I hate transportation, So like, give me a racetrack, give me any vehicle to perform on, and I love it. Give me 50,000 cars and 17 stoplights and 40-mile-an-hour speed limits, and that's not for me. Yeah, I mean, I think when people can't drive or they're taken over by all autonomous cars, they'll be like, well, I still like that whole motorsports thing. Maybe see if I can go to the track more often. And maybe there'll be more people going to the track because they can't actually drive the car.
Could be. We'll see. It's pretty crazy.
So I think it'll be safer. You think that it'll be if the car computer is driving, it should be safer. But the joke is always, well, computers never crash, right?
Yeah. I mean, let's say tomorrow we went full autonomous. Every car on the road was autonomous. There would be 20 years of glitches and crashes. I mean, I don't think automobile accidents are going away anytime soon, even if computers take over. I mean, look at our cell phones. They've been around for 10, 15 years now, the smartphones, and my phone just crashed the other day in the middle of a freaking Zoom call. It just shut off. So
Yeah.
who's to say that those things aren't going to happen? But it's exciting for sure. I'd say one other thing that's really cool. I mean, I've been going to see my sports doctor. The advancements in technology with those things, with like the medical side of things, is crazy. Like they have this X-ray machine that is showing you live picture of what your bones look like. Like I broke my elbow last year and had surgery, and there's a couple screws in there, and I want to see that it was healing properly. And they have this big device they held over my elbow, and it's showing up on the screen, and she's moving it around, and it's like, man, I remember the days of like getting the imaging done. You'd have to wait weeks for those plastic films to come, and then you still couldn't even hardly see what was going on. It's advancements in technology are pretty crazy now.
And they're just going to keep getting faster. Well, not always. They only get faster if we keep funding them.
Right.
Like phones are getting faster because everybody keeps buying them.
Right.
But toasters have kind of leveled off because there's not a whole lot of new technology in toasters, right?
Right.
But yeah, so I'm just going to be watching some more Moto3 qualifying. You know, there's so many series now to follow. It's almost overwhelming. I started following the CEV over in Europe, and then there's the Talent Cup as well, that class. And then there's the IMSA. You know, there's IndyCar and Formula One. You got Motorsports over here for Supercross, motocross, indoor and outdoor. And then you got the AFT, American Flat Track, Moto America. You can't tell me there's nothing on TV. I mean, that's
I love it.
I'm sure I'm missing like the Mazda MX-5 Cup. That's a support class for the IMSA sometimes. There's a Porsche Cup. Then they have, obviously, there's a 6 hours, what was a Spa that they just had. So the World Endurance Championship, World Endurance. And then there's also the motorcycle, the endurance for WEC, right? World Endurance Championship. Maybe I said that second time, but either way, there's a lot of them to watch, and I try to follow most of them, but I don't watch racing full time. I mean, you could spend all your time doing that. I just skip all the preamble. I just go straight to the race. I don't need all that, pre-race stuff.
Definitely makes it more exciting too when you know someone in the series. Like my involvement with four wheels in the last 10 years is I've met some amazing people and worked with some really cool people. Like earlier, I was watching the Xfinity NASCAR race because I got 3 of my buddies in it. I've got buddies that are racing overseas in cars, and like you said, I grew up in the flat track racing. I grew up doing that. So, it's definitely more exciting when you know people in it, but there's definitely no shortage of racing these days. I think it's great for the sport. All these broadcasting streaming services that are out now. You can, watch it on your own leisure rather than having to tune in at 3 a.m. to watch, MotoGP qualifying in France. So
For sure.
It's pretty cool.
Definitely more accessible. And I saw you posted on social media. There's a bad crash or something, NASCAR Cup.
That was my buddy just earlier today.
Yeah, it looked like a nasty one. There's a big pileup, cars going everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, they're racing at Dover. It's his 3rd ever NASCAR race. My buddy Matt Jaspel, I started working with him at one of the car schools out here, and he's jumping into it and trying to figure it out, and he ended up on top of another car today. So
that's how it goes sometimes. But I'm actually listening to an audiobook, Dale Jr. right now. And he's talking about all his concussions and all his head trauma that he went through and all the dizziness and all the notes he was making on his iPhone, all the times he was feeling bad. And it just makes me think of, all those collisions that they have, even though they're not hitting the ground, they still have major injuries like all the time. It could be maybe they didn't let go of their wheel at the right time and they sprained their wrist, or they have a Hans device for their neck, but still they're getting head injuries, not hitting anything.
Right.
Just
right.
Such an impact of deceleration.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, some of my worst concussions and head injuries were when I didn't even hit my head. It was more from just a jolt,
Yeah.
More of a neck injury than anything that resulted in a pretty severe concussion. So absolutely, even in a car with full roll cage, Hans, proper helmet and everything, you still get hurt.
Yeah, it can be bad, but it's getting better, I'd say.
Yeah.
Although you look at like the Roman Grosjean crash at Bahrain, did you see that one?
Mhm.
That
Yep.
was pretty scary. His car, split in two in a ball of fire. It's like that's not ideal. That's not what you want.
Did you did you see the episode where they actually like broke it down and CGI recreated it and all that? It's pretty insane.
I saw maybe not. I didn't see that episode. I saw on Formula One, the Drive to Survive. They talked about it where he said he was trying to get up one way and it was like blocked, and he tried to get up the other way and it was blocked that way, and then he saw orange and he's like, wait a minute, it's not a sunset. Oh no, that's fire. I need to get out now. And then he just started trying to evacuate a different way and ended up getting out. And that all happens in like slow motion in a quarter of a second.
Hmm.
Now, have you ever had to use an air fence? Have you ever hit an air fence before?
Yeah, quite a few times. Nothing too serious. One of my worst crashes was probably in New Jersey at the end of turn one. Somebody blew up right in front of me, and I crashed in their oil as soon as I went to the brakes, about 160.
Oof.
Ended up down on the air fence on the far end. I have before. They definitely work.
Yeah. Tell me what that's like going into an air fence.
Um, it still hurts, but it hurts a lot less than hay bales or tires for sure.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's a use for them, and especially like even in flat track, they use them, which is pretty awesome. I mean, when you see a rider and a bike go into an air fence and the air fence pops, I mean, it's essentially like an airbag in a car. I mean, it's designed to stop the initial impact, and it's a great invention that they put into racing, quite a few years back, and probably would have saved quite a few lives back in the day, but advancements and everything.
Yeah. It's
And even the airbag suits now these days.
Do you wear an airbag suit?
I don't. I'm sponsored by Cortec. As you can see behind me, they don't have an airbag set up for it yet. They're working on that, and I'm working with them on some development for a newer suit in the next year or so that's going to incorporate, if not the Alpine Stars airbag system, something very similar.
Okay, very cool. Kind of like
Yeah.
a private label, dual manufacturer type deal.
Not sure how they'll do it, but yeah,
Yeah.
something like that.
Very good. And I don't think we mentioned, but where are you on social media? Where can people find you out there? Are you on Instagram and Facebook and all that?
Yeah, thanks for that. I'm on Instagram. It's T Wyman, so T and then my last name _10. You can find me on Instagram, and then on Facebook, it's Travis Wyman Racing. It's my racing page.
And Twitter, any other ones? TikTok?
I don't really use Twitter. My TikTok is like 4 videos of my dog on it, so we'll stick to Instagram and Facebook for now. I'm not big into social media. I'm getting better at it from a promotional side of things. It's definitely where advertising and marketing is been headed for many years. So definitely using it more to promote my sponsors and make sure they get recognized. Everyone's all about the tags and the amount of clicks these days, but yeah, I'd say Instagram and Facebook is where I'm basically located these days.
And what about any video? Are you a video creator for YouTube?
No. Gray Pham, he's a popular videographer, photographer in the industry now. He just did a really cool edit for me and for Hustle Hard Racing at the last round, highlighting our win, and that's posted on Instagram. But I don't do any of that myself. I don't have time.
Well, you have video created for you, anyways.
Yeah. Yep.
That's very cool. It's cool to have those edits to post out there and to show what you're really doing. Most people, when I say I race motorcycles, they're like, "Oh, you're like motocross?" No, that's usually the go-to, right? Like motocross,
Right.
Like, no. That's why my logo looks like a sport bike. So that's not motocross.
Yep. Yeah, actually, like the little edit that Gray Fam did for me helped my doctor better understand why my lower back hurts after a race weekend. She was like, "Oh, I saw that clip." She's like, "Now I see why you're in pain. Like, I see the position that you're in. I didn't fully understand it before." So, yeah, it's all good stuff.
For sure. And we're about an hour and 25 right now. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about? I was trying to wrap it up in about an hour and a half today.
No, big thing for me is like obviously racing is expensive. I'm right now at the top of my sport. My main focus when I'm off the track, other than training, is collecting sponsorship. And right now, I've got a new sponsor on, title sponsor for VIR. It's a company called Share, SHAIR. If you've heard of Turo before.
Oh yeah.
In simplistic terms, it's like Uber for your exotic car. Like, let's say you own a Ferrari and you don't drive it a lot, but you want to make money off of it, you can post it up and have it rented. So that's essentially what Turo is. And Share is a new company to compete with Turo. My opinion, a little bit better. The platform's easier to use, the insurance is better, and it's one of my buddy's startup companies that he's helped work on. So they're actually coming on board as title sponsor at VIR. So the announcement will be coming out soon on that with some links, to their social media, so you can figure out how it all works. It's pretty neat. Anywhere in the country you can fly to and pick up your dream car, rather than having to go to an exotic rental place and pay thousands. It's got some pretty reasonable pricing, and it's at this day and age fairly easy. A lot of it's even contactless. You don't even have to meet the owner to go get it. So that's the company that's come on board for VIR. But moving forward, I've got a lot of opportunities open for other rounds for title sponsorships going ahead. So if anybody's listening and wants to jump on board with the BMW program, I'd really appreciate it.
Very good. And I've actually used Turo before. It was I was getting something fixed on my truck. It was in the shop, and I didn't want to go to Enterprise or rental car or spend all that money. It's like over $100 a day sometimes to do those major companies. And this, I don't remember the exact cost, but I think it was something like 30-40 bucks a day or less. I got a Kia Rio, so it wasn't anything exotic. It was just something basic to get me through, but yeah, it was super cheap, and I would recommend it. So if this one's even better cars, that sounds like it could be a good winner, a good app.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's like it replaces the middleman in all these transactions. You don't have to go through a rental car agency. It's done through the owner, so it's a pretty neat company.
Hey, I'm all for it. It's the gig economy. Everybody has multiple jobs now. Everybody is doing multiple things because you can rent out your car, and you can rent out some space on your lawn, and you can mow other people's lawns through apps now. So everybody's trying to hustle. Everybody's it's a pandemic, and quickly, how has the pandemic affected you, if any?
It has, and it's changed like my work life, obviously, how we interact with customers and students and things like that. But for me, during the time off when everything was essentially shut down, it just gave me more time to train. I got like extremely addicted to mountain biking, and since you're allowed to be outside and do things, I bought a new bike last year, and I've got like 1,500 miles on it already. So
awesome.
For me, it didn't change a whole lot. I think last year I think I traveled more than I ever have in a calendar year. It didn't really affect me too much, but I know it's affected a lot of other people, so I don't want to sound like I'm not aware of what's happening, but it's definitely hurt a lot of people in a negative way. I'm just happy to see that things are starting to open back up again. Everyone says a new normal. I don't think it'll ever be how it was, but hopefully we can get back to somewhat of a civilized society, and everyone gets along and trusts each other, and we carry on with life.
For sure. It's exciting. I just heard some news the other day that they're releasing or reducing restrictions on masks for vaccinated people. So they're trying to incentivize it by saying this, so that hopefully more people will get it, and we can all go back to doing whatever the hell we want to do and not have to worry about all this stuff.
For sure.
So that's about our time for today. So thank you so much for coming on here. I still have a bunch of podcasts to edit and post before I even touch yours. So it'll be at least probably a month before I post yours. But thanks for coming on, and I'll get it once I do post it. I'll make sure I tag you and put it on. I'll put it on YouTube and Anchor, which goes to all those audio platforms like Spotify and Google Podcasts and Apple iTunes. And then I also post this to Instagram TV in 2 separate clips because they only allow you 60 minutes or less. So it'll be out there, and just make sure you reshare it so that it gets as many eyeballs as possible. So it'll be on your network as well. And then maybe we'll follow up in about a year, and we'll reconvene and see how you're doing. Do a follow up.
Awesome, man. Thanks for having me. It's fun.
I appreciate your time, and have a good day.
You too, man. See you.
All right, thanks. Bye bye.